Strawberry too, if that happens.
Hey,
Maybe
even two.
All right. Okay, so this was a case, I'm telling you, and Jana Bommersbach is here. She wrote a new book on Deborah Mielke. And you just said right now, first of all, welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you very much.
You are signing your new book, A Stolen Life, the Deborah Mielke Story. You were talking about how this is one of the highest profile murder cases, maybe in the history of our state.
Really?
Right.
So we're getting about, I don't know, 6,000 people a month who are moving here. So maybe let's catch everybody up. What was this case all about?
Deborah Mielke was accused and convicted and sentenced to death row for having her young son killed on his way to see Santa Claus.
Christopher.
Christopher. And it was like, who was more despicable in the country than such a thing, right?
Right.
And she went on trial and she was convicted and off she goes. And for 25 years, most of the state thought, most of the world thought that she was guilty, except a few people who knew the inside story, what was really going on. And they were pushing. And she finally got some great attorneys who were able to bring all this stuff together, went to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and in 2013, the Ninth Circuit threw out her death penalty, threw out her conviction, and told Arizona to either give her a fair trial or let her go.
So let's go into that, exactly what happened. So she had a roommate, and you said like a damaged friend. They were the ones who took Christopher and actually killed him. But they implicated Deborah in the whole thing. But it was all based off of...
They did not implicate Deborah in the whole thing. They did not...
Okay,
no,
they convicted her of this, though, right?
She was convicted, but not because of those guys. Neither of those guys would testify against her.
Right.
The one that they think is the killer, Stiers, said that she had nothing to do with this. Has said this consistently and told me that himself from a death row interview. The other one refused to testify against her, and in fact, turned down a plea deal that would have saved him from the death penalty if he'd have testified Deborah talked to him about this killing. And he said, I can't sign that because it's not what I know to be the truth.
Okay,
so what was the piece of evidence that
the only evidence they had was a confession. She confessed. She confessed to a detective from Phoenix, Armando Saldate Jr., who was notorious for being the closer long before we ever knew that term.
Right.
And he said that she confessed to him in a 25-minute interview that was not taped, that was not witnessed, and that was not verified. It was his police report alone claiming that she confessed to him that convicted her. That was the only piece of evidence that they had. And it took 25 years to realize that he was a dirty cop.
Because there are several other cases. How many? That it was proven, or at least suspected, that he had lied and gotten false confessions, correct?
And things have been overturned, cases have been thrown out. The county knew darn well for 7 years before Deborah ever came on the scene that they had trouble with Saldate. And in fact, while she was being sentenced in one courtroom, in the same building, in another courtroom, they were defending Saldate in another case where he had lied. Wow. So this was not like a secret to these guys, although they claimed that he was this stellar person whose word you could count on. And on his word alone, she was convicted.
Wow. So you wrote this book, you did all this work on this. How long did it take you in terms of investigating the case and looking into it?
It was like a 3-year process. I mean, when I started in 2013, and when I read that Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals opinion, I couldn't believe how they absolutely tore Arizona apart. I mean, they were just astonished that any state could convict someone on this little evidence, and that could make so many mistakes in the legal process. And I started looking then, and I got in to see Deborah, started interviewing her, started looking at everything that was going on.
This is while she was still in prison?
Right. Oh. Gathering documents. I was out to the prison 3 or 4 times while she was still incarcerated, because it took a long time for them to finally let her out.
But what a story. I mean, more than 20 years on death row.
24 years on, half her life. She was 24 when she went in, and she was 49 when she came out.
23 hours a day. I met her briefly in the courtroom, and I could tell she'd been locked up for a long time. She didn't seem like she was really there. Let me ask you this really quickly, because I think we're running out of time. Is there anything new in this book that we're going to find out?
Tons of stuff new. You will find out that, in fact, who confessed to killing Christopher. You'll find out why the county did what they did. You'll find out why Saldate did what he did.
Can you give us who confessed to killing Christopher?
The other guy, the damaged guy, Roger Scott, the guy who supposedly was their star witness. He was, in fact, the guy who killed Christopher.
And you said you pretty much proved that she's innocent.
I'm absolutely convinced, totally convinced, and I think the readers will be convinced when they see all the evidence. When you see it, I lay it out brick by brick along the way, so you get all the evidence. You hear everything.
Well, Jana, thank you so much.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I mean, for years, she was the only woman on Arizona's death row, correct?
Exactly.
And she occupied that cell for all those years, and to have that, overturned. It's why a lot of people argue against the death penalty, because they say once you go ahead and put somebody to death, you can never overturn it.
Right.
I'm not saying that's,
And so you're signing your book.
Yes, tonight at 7 o'clock at Changing Hands Bookstore, we're having a public opening, and we're signing the book, and I'm talking about my investigation and that kind of thing. So I wish people would come out.
Good meeting you.
Yeah.
Or seeing you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, boy, is that an interesting case, I'll tell you. All right.